Volition should have listened to their fans when they had the backlash when the Saints Row reboot was announced. They should have. They really should have. But Yong is reporting in a new video that perhaps the publisher, Deep Silver, might be to blame for the cringe and baffling tone. This could make sense because the devs very well might have been willing to go back to the drawing board and rework some stuff after the reveal was received so poorly. And it could have been that the publisher was like, no, we're not giving you more money to finish this. No, you're going to put it out. People are going to love it. People are going to love it. We're a bunch of like 50, 60-year-old dudes. We totally know what the young people love. So we're going to see what this story is. I'm not familiar with it. I haven't heard it, but let's see what Yong had to say. Okay, well, Yippee, or Flippy, not Yippee, Flippy is the one that made the video we actually want to react to. So let's see what we're dealing with.
Urgency meeting. Volition is officially dead. It's over. Tyron will never get his desk. I was in the middle of editing my final Saints Row reboot video where I was going to elaborate on the state of Saints Row, Deep Silver, and Volition, but this is a complete blindside. So let me just roughly say what I was going to say in that video. I don't know how anyone could be hopeful for this series anymore. They're not going to reboot the game again, and Volition is no longer with Deep Silver, the IP holders. The IP holders who insisted that the game be about friendship and himbos and the gig economy and hashtag that's relatable AF.
Friends and himbos, the gig economy, and hashtag relatable. I think it's like I said, I think in our initial I tried of it, it feels like a game designed by 60-year-old men trying to be relatable to the young people, even though they have a grandson that is 17 years old, and oh, maybe I can find. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. A picture of a guy popped in my brain. A video of a cringe TikTok influencer getting arrested for assaulting. Oh, it's this one. Dude, it's this one. Delusional TikTok influencer. This is who I imagine their like grandson is. Okay, it's this guy. Where is he? Oh my god, where's the original? Okay, reactions to reactions to reactions. But he's like this weird wannabe like rock star.
Decide for yourself.
And he like assaulted somebody, and so allegedly, I guess. And so he gets arrested, and he drives like a stupid fancy car, like a Lambo. And I know this is like such a weird diatribe. Then his girlfriend's like, you have no right to arrest him, even though he assaulted somebody. And then he's like, you got to take off all my jewelry. And he's wearing tons of very expensive jewelry. So he has some really rich parent that has just spoiled the crap out of him. And he's just like a pistol whipped somebody. Yeah. It's on video. Yeah, that's him driving and doing this. Like it's some wannabe celebrity TikTok dude, lol cow. And he's just a maniac, but he's got really rich parents that have allowed him to live like this. And that's, you know what, honestly, his parents are probably executives over at Embracer Group or Deep Silver or whatever, and are the ones like, they think that he's normal for this generation. Like they're the normal teenager or young adult in America. So they put out Saints Row thinking everybody's like that kid. And so he makes this because he's like, yeah, this is what all these kids are like. Very relatable.
Super chatted $5.
It's not at all.
When it comes to top tier, open world destruction games, Red Faction, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, BF3 and Mercenaries are all-time classics.
Yes. Again, if you are interested in like destructible environments, Red Faction, go try it. It's a good time. And they're cheap because they're like 15 years old. But anyway, all that to say, thank you again for the 5. All that to say, this is all just very much 60-year-old men trying to be relatable to the young people based on their impressions of young people, probably from a grandson like that, or what they see when they pull up TikTok and scroll through it for 3 minutes thinking that they're checking their email because they have no idea how to use technology. That's the type of people that made these decisions.
And teal. Deep Silver really pushed the color teal for branding. I gotta make this clear. For as much as we all want to blame Volition,
I just don't know, like, why is everything got to be teal and then purple and have weird crystals? Everything has been Fortnite-ified, where every game that comes out that seems soulless and corporate is built in this really weird art style, and it spills over. Like Far Cry 6's DLC had it. Of course, Fortnite puts it first and foremost. A bunch of expansions to multiple like DLC to multiple live service games have done this. Like every game nowadays just has big purple crystals and stuff. It's really, really weird.
Which we totally can for shoehorning in that awful combat.
Purple is Saints Row, yeah, but the teal and the weird crystals that are in like the outside areas, I just don't know why it is. Everything, also everybody starts to look like brothers and siblings to Fortnite characters. It's just weird. Like everybody started to do that bland like wash on character design, so their skin makes it look like or makes it look I can't talk. It makes it look like their skin is made of like a wet paper bag. And so it doesn't look like skin. It's just weird. It makes it look cartoony, but also not really cartoony, like semi-realistic. It's just really weird. It's the Fortnite-ification of games. It's odd.
A system that they refuse to let die with a whim. Deep Silver ultimately calls the shots for what the game is. Saints Row does not exist until they ask for one to be made. Whether they ask Volition or some other studio, they call the shots for what their IP is ultimately about. After all, it's literally their property. Volition wanted the reboot to be about gangs. Some of us in the core community were personally told early on that they were setting out to make Saints Row 2.5. But Deep Silver stepped in and said, no, that kind of subject matter doesn't sell games. Water it all down and make it about friendship. There's so much to be said about that, I'm only scratching the surface. If you guys want a remaster of the old games, it's entirely up to Deep Silver, and they just don't believe there's money to be made with it. This is just this one CM's opinion, but it's nearly verbatim for every excuse I've ever heard for why they just won't do it.
In my opinion, and this is mine, not the position of the company, I think it is more respectful of those games to leave them as they are. Any messing with them at this point is just going to upset people if Microsoft ever do something similar with backwards compatibility for PC, and if PS actually tried at all with backwards compatibility, that would be the dream. And honestly, there's probably a couple thousand fans that would buy a remaster. Passionate ones, don't get me wrong, and loud. Everyone talking on Twitter doesn't equal an actual intent to buy it. That's very true. That's very true. But that doesn't equal it being worth it to plow millions of dollars into it. Risk pissing people off if music is missing or changed, or it not capturing the game as they remember it. It's not going to grow the fan base. It would be fan service, which I love to do, but at the end of the day, it's a business, not a charity, and 1 and 2 were less popular than the others by a long way. The numbers don't add up, so I can see why it would not be a thing. That's just my thought as to why it's a big no, and it makes sense. I can see that. I mean, it does make sense. I don't know if it's only a few thousand people that would buy a remaster of the original Saints Row, but maybe. I could see that. Remasters are not always just a no-brainer. It's pretty rare for remasters to sell millions and millions of copies. And I'm talking remasters, not necessarily remakes. Remakes are more compelling, like the Mafia remake, I think is much more compelling than just like a bland reskin of Skyrim Anniversary Edition. But Bethesda has the built-in excuse of launching their games broken. So if you buy the Anniversary Edition that's visually at least improved a little bit, and also has a bunch of game-breaking bugs fixed thanks to the work of modders, then you're justified in buying it. Then it makes sense, right? Then it's not you just buying a quick reskin. You're actually going and getting something tangible because now the game will actually work. It's all part of the plan.
Too long didn't read. They just don't think there's enough money to be made to make it worth the effort. I mean, of course, we would argue that if presented to a new audience, modern gamers would love a remaster of the OG games as much as the fans would. But of course, they don't give a shit and they won't admit that. They will just claim that the community shifted interest, so that's why they must meet these new expectations.
I mean, I also think, like, I haven't played the original Saints Row, so let me be very clear. But I do think that a proper remake can build the fan base, build the community. And again, I'm just going to go to Mafia Definitive Edition. I can't even tell you how many people I had reach out to me when I made those videos on that game, come out and be like, I've never played a Mafia game before, but I just played Definitive Edition and I went and I bought Mafia 2, the remaster, not remake, the remaster that they did. And then they went and bought Mafia 3, and they actually got into the franchise because of the remake. So I think it can happen if it's done well. But that Mafia Definitive Edition is probably the most impressive remake that I can think of in recent memory. It just totally changes the game in all extremely positive ways while also retaining the feeling of the original. Like it's amazing. It really, really is amazing. But that's expensive and it takes a very talented team to do it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the main dev team whatever, Hangar 13, I think is what they're called. They are the ones that did it. So they put like their A team on the remake, not a secondary spin-off studio that just does these quick flips, but a main huge AAA top of the tier studio working on it. It was the main dev team. That's true. Resident Evil 2 remake, that's another great one. I think that probably also brought people into the fold for sure. I think that probably also did the same thing. That was also a great remake. And Resi 4 remake, that's another great example from this year. I mean, Resi 4 remake blew people away, and I know for a fact that that was also an instance where a lot of people had never played like any of these Resident Evil games, tried 4, got really into it, and went on to buy like 7 and try the 2 remake. And so it is a thing that happens. It is a thing that happens for sure. And yeah, Jacob says he did exactly that after the Mafia remake. Yeah. It's
They
magic.
will never admit to their investors that they've done a bad job with modern Saints Row. It all comes down to what they think will bring in the most money. Saints Row fans are not the priority. In fact, now that they're starting to work on the Saints Row 2 patch again after all this time, there's some internal dialogue happening around the budget for it. How much more work is needed and if it's even worth it. That's not to say it's canceled, but... And that's basically where my old script stops, because now the studio Deep Silver hired to complete the patch has shut down. Volition is closing doors. So what does that tell you? Now, I had planned to just keep it vague about those budgeting concerns, but now it probably doesn't matter. They were concerned about issues regarding updated UI, unlock screens, UGC, QA testing, and more importantly, there was a growing concern about the budget for dedicated Steam servers for co-op and multiplayer. That was apparently looking to be rather costly for them. I even heard they were looking into using Epic Online Services instead of Steam. The word around Deep Silver is that they wanted it out ASAP. But that means ASAP or we're shelving this shit. How much more work is exactly needed to get this thing done? And the truth is, they haven't been able to get a clear answer about that. Not good. It could just be a coincidence that the day after the Steam sale ends, Volition is canned, because it really looks like the Embracer bubble is bursting all around. But in regards to the Saints Row 2 patch, maybe they're also using that data to say a free patch for a 15-year-old game is no longer worth funding, because obviously the gaming community is no longer interested in Saints Row, right?
I mean, honestly, these numbers are not that terrible. I saw some numbers for some recent games like Immortals of Avium, a brand new game that was nowhere near as buggy or broken as Saints Row was, that it was down in like the 400 or 500 range. So I don't know where it's at now. Maybe it's better, or maybe it's way worse. I have no idea. But it's kind of crazy that for a huge game like Saints Row, again, $100 million game, that they're averaging like 1,500, 2,000, some days like 3,000 viewers, or 3,000 players.
It couldn't be because they ruined the series. Well guys, I'm just going to leave you with this. I was a part of a group that was helping out with the Saints Row 2 patch. I documented bugs, wrote reports, and gave my input about enhancements and how the game can be improved. My NDA expired and they wanted me to sign a 10-year NDA to continue my efforts to help out. And I refused to resign. Signing that would mean I couldn't tell you guys anything. I have played the patch and progress was going quite well for a while. That's what made me so confident that this thing was going to be released eventually. But this whole mess with Embracer? This truly puts things in limbo. The facts are this. Deep Silver still owns the Saints Row IP. The Saints Row reboot could still have a sequel produced. The Saints Row 2 patch could still be in the works. Volition dying doesn't really matter all that much. In fact, the core group of people that were working on the Saints Row 2 patch were hired independently anyway. Volition wasn't really going to use their manpower
That's
for it
cool.
until they were done with the reboot. And ironically, the moment they get done with it, they shut down. So is the patch still coming? I don't know. People who have worked close with it don't know. It would be tragic if we never saw it. But that's up to Deep Silver now. And I'm not really hopeful about that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every time there's a game that releases really, really problematic, it's common for the bigwigs upstairs to look at the game and be like, okay, that failed, destroy it all. You know, like they did it with AC Unity is the common example that we throw out, because they're like, okay, that game was received poorly because we rushed it and it launched super broken. But we're not going to blame ourselves. It was poorly received because of the stealth and because of the co-op and because of the lighting engine and because of us trying to be really ambitious and like all these other things. And like maybe those things made it more difficult to get the game out on time and that caused the bugs and things, perhaps. But I think you threw the baby out with the bathwater. You're like, oh, the bathwater's dirty. Chuck the baby into the highway. Like that's what they did with Unity. That's what they've done with a lot of these big franchises that launch less than stellar. That's why it's good to see a game like Cyberpunk launch really buggy and broken, and then for them to go and fix it and actually improve it, not just abandon it completely. But I have a feeling that Saints Row is going to be one such game or franchise that gets just set on a shelf and forgotten about. Like, I just don't think that they're going to bother with it. Maybe they try to tackle it and they're like, oh, we'll win back fan favor by releasing this Saints Row 2 patch that everybody will love and will make the game really great again and playable in the modern era without a ton of issues. Maybe we do that, but let's be honest, I don't think so. I don't think they do that.
As I've stated, with the budgeting concerns, it sounded like they were looking for a way out of it anyway. And well, maybe they got it. I personally know that Idle Ninja, as sick as he was on his deathbed, worked really, really hard on this patch. He cared so much about the Saints Row community. Saints Row fans were like a family to him, and he knew his contributions to this game would make all of our lives a little brighter. I got to see his love for all of us firsthand, but I often forget you guys are left in the dark about this stuff. This patch means so much, and I hope it continues. I hope they're able to fulfill Idle Ninja's legacy. But that's up to Deep Silver.
I don't know who Idle Ninja is.
Good nightmare as your friends try to make...
If he's passed away, that's terrible. Terrible. Somebody worked on this, passed... Oh, Jesus. If anything, put it out just for that guy. I mean, most of the work is done. Like, just send it out. Let the community continue working on it, you know? It's cool to see that he worked with them on the patch while they're working on it, providing feedback and stuff. That's cool. It's not super common. Like, I'll get reached out to by small studios that are working on stuff. And in some cases, you know, it's like really, really early on and they want me to play like a prototype and offer feedback. Other times it's a little further along and it's like alpha and they're like, oh, try this. Let us know what you think. In some cases, like they've already gone to the publisher and they've gotten the publisher to give them a big check to finish development. And in those cases, the publisher will even reach out and be like, hey, we'll pay you however much money to go and play the prototype or the alpha or the beta, whatever it is, and provide us feedback. So it is something that happens, but it's cool to see that they're going to YouTubers to work on something like a patch or an update for a game like that. That's super cool. I love to hear it. He took my thing.